that matters. They do not care about your child's grades. They do not care about your child's state test scores. They do not care about attendance. They are not going to ask for an essay or an interview. Only the score from the test matters. The day that your child comes in to take the test, on that same day, they will be asked to rank the schools in the orders that they prefer. First choice, second choice, third choice. You do not have to list all of the schools, but the more schools that you list, the more likely you are to get in. Here is something very, very important. Rank the schools truly in the order that you prefer, because they will give you your first available school. Do not think, well, I've been taking practice tests and my practice tests put me somewhere at Queen's Science, so I'm going to put Queen's Science first because I think that's the school I'm more likely to get into. But if you really prefer Stuyvesant or Bronx Science, even if your child scores high enough to have gotten into Stuyvesant or Bronx Science, they will still be given their first available choice. Because what they do is they take all the kids, all 30,000, and rank them from number 1 to number 30,000. Obviously there's a lot of ties, but for number 1 to number 30,000. And they pull the name of the top scoring kid, and they say, what is the first choice of this child? And if it's the child put down Stuyvesant, they will put them in Stuyvesant. If the child put down Staten Island Tech, they will put them in Staten Island Tech, regardless of what the actual numerical score was. So please, rank the schools in the order you genuinely prefer, and not in the order of the odds that you think that you might get into the school. Does that make sense? Okay. There is another specialized high school that does not depend on the SHSAT. That is LaGuardia. LaGuardia High School of the Arts is its own thing. You apply to LaGuardia by auditioning. There is a drama major, a music, singing, and instrument major. There's a theater tech major. There's a fine arts major. There is a dance major. Your child may audition for more than one studio. Your child may be accepted to more than one studio, but your child must pick only one. So your child could audition for drama, theater tech, and vocal and get into all three, but to go there to study, you have to pick only one. Here's the thing about LaGuardia. The arts audition is only a part of the process. They also take into consideration here, they do care about your child's grades. They do care about their attendance. They do care about their state test scores. There have been many cases, in fact, parents have sued the school in recent years because their children received a very high mark on the artistic portion, but then still didn't get in due to their academics. So don't think that LaGuardia does not care about your academics. LaGuardia cares very much about your academics. So while for LaGuardia you do not need to prep for the SHSAT, the fact is they're still going to look for good test scores and that sort of thing. So academics do matter for LaGuardia. All right, so now we've talked about the SHSAT schools and LaGuardia. We're now coming to the rest of the public schools only. We're not talking about charter, we're not talking about private, we're not talking about religious. We're now talking only about all the other public schools. There are different kinds of public schools. There are schools that are called screened schools. You might hear them called selective schools. People use the terms interchangeably. Those schools include a variety of schools. They can be Bard Early College, which is in both Manhattan and in Queens. They can be Nest, which some of you may know from the fact that it starts in kindergarten and is a citywide gifted and talented school. They take a lot of kids at the high school level. It can be Edward Murrow in Brooklyn. It's basically, there are many schools, and actually in my book, as I said, there's a list and you can see all the schools that qualify. These are schools that require you to do something to earn admission. Some of them might have their own test. Some of them might have an interview. Some of them might also have an artistic component, but unlike LaGuardia, they are lumped in with everything else. Some of them might ask to see work that your child has already done. They might ask for a graded paper. Some of them might have your child come in and write an essay when they come in. Some of them might have an interview and an essay. Some of them might have an essay and a test. Some of them might have a test and an interview. The point is there are many, many different schools. They have many, many different requirements. I strongly recommend, in all seriousness, a spreadsheet so that you can keep track of when the deadlines are and everything else. There are a couple of things. A school, for instance, like Bard Early College, first has a test, and then if you score highly enough on the test, you might be invited for an interview. For schools that have a two-step process, it is very important to remember that if your child did not make it past round 1, they have no chance of getting in. So do not even list that school. What do I mean by list that school? There will be a second form that has nothing to do with the SHSAT. Remember how you ranked the SHSAT schools, and LaGuardia is its own process. There will be a different form that will usually be given to you by your child's guidance counselor in middle school at the beginning of 8th grade. It is usually due, this year it was due on December 1st, so that's roughly when it's due. There are 12 spots on that form. Again, you do not need to list all 12, but to maximize your odds of getting in somewhere, it helps to put down as many choices as you can. So for instance, if you did not make it past round 1 at Bard, do not list Bard on your application because you have no chance of getting in. Once again, here it is very, very important to rank the schools in the order you prefer, because here, once again, you will be given your first available choice. And if you're given, say, your 5th choice, but you really would have preferred your 6th choice, the Department of Ed really does not care because you have been given your top ranked choice. Why is it very, very important that you list as many options as you can possibly tolerate? Because of this. There's a rumor going around, I don't know who's telling parents this, there's a rumor going around that they must give you one of your choices. So I have parents coming to me saying, I have a brilliant idea. I'm only going to put down one school, and then they have to give me the school that I put down. This is absolutely untrue. They are not obliged to give you one of your 12 choices. It is utterly possible that you might get no match. And then you go to second round. But which schools are available in second round? Those are schools that did not fill. As a rule, those are not schools that people are particularly clamoring to go to. Here is a very important piece of advice. I'm speaking, this is sort of a rough metric, but you'll get the gist of it. If your child is a B student, when you look at the big high school directory that your child will usually be issued at the end of 7th grade, if you do not get this directory from your guidance counselor at the end of 7th grade, you should ask for it. If they say we don't know, there's a link again in my book and you can find it online.
And I'll make sure that there are a ton of hard copies
exactly,
here.
Because you can't really count on the guidance office to provide.
Let's just say I have my ways. I'll have boxes of books here.
Excellent. So you will have
Okay.
this book at the end of 7th grade. When you go through looking at each high school, it will tell you which students have been admitted in the past. It will tell you what the student's GPA is. It will give you the profile of the students that have been admitted in the past. So, if your child is a B student and you only list A schools, it is very, very probable that your child will not get into any of them. Even if you list schools where your child fits the profile perfectly. I've had parents coming to me and say, look, I put down 2 schools and my child had exactly the GPA and exactly the state test scores that they listed, so how could my child have not gotten in? And I'll say, I'm sure your child did have the exact GPA, I'm sure she did have the exact test scores, but so did probably 10,000 other children who also ranked the school. And the schools might have been balancing for gender, they might have been balancing for geography from different neighborhoods. They were not going to take too many kids from one middle school. So if your child was ranked number 10 at their middle school, and this school was only taking 5 kids from every middle school, the fact of the matter is, yes, they might be more qualified than the kid who was number 3 at another middle school, but if they're taking 5 from this one and 5 from this one, your number 10 was not going to get in. So when you are filling out your form, keep in mind that if your child is a B student and you only list A schools, odds are they will not get in. And then they will need to go to second round where only the C schools and the D schools are left. So if you don't choose wisely, those who remember from going to college, your safety school, if you don't put at least a few of those schools down, the odds are your child might end up at an even worse school rather than the one they might have ended with if you'd been a bit more realistic in your choices. And the reason that...
2 more minutes.
And the reason that I say list all 12 choices is because even a school that was your last choice is better than a school you didn't pick at all. Yes, they can put you in a school you did not list at all. So that's the public school list. Questions about that? That's the other public school form. Very quick, 5 more minutes. Charter schools. Charter schools do not go on the same form as the SHSAT or the other public schools. So charter schools you can apply to separately, and you could get into an SHSAT school, you could get into a selective school, and you could get into a charter school. So there's no reason not to. And again, in my book, I have a list of charter schools, where they are, what they specialize in. Private schools and religious schools. Religious schools are mostly the Catholic schools, many of which have their own separate exam, which is also given in the fall. And in the book, I have a timeline when each exam is, and I'm sure Francis knows exactly when each exam is. So you take a separate exam for Catholic schools than you do for private independent schools. There might be some private independent schools that are also Catholic, like Sacred Heart or Marymount or Xavier or Regis. But the fact of the matter is those are independent schools. You apply to each private school individually. There's no common app for private high schools. You go to each one individually. It's possible to get into more than one private school. You do not have to rank them like you do the public schools. My final word about the private schools: you would be shocked by the amount of financial aid that is out there, especially for families of color, for families who can offer diversity. Private schools, unlike public schools, can be much more selective with their student body, so they're trying to put together a very diverse group of students. And the fact of the matter is, they might be looking for an athletic Asian girl, or they might be looking for a high-testing African-American boy, or a Hispanic boy who plays an instrument. You never really know what a private school is looking for. Just know that do not let the $45,000 price tag throw you. Usually the more expensive the school, the more money they have to give in financial aid, the bigger their endowment, and they are desperately looking for diverse families of academically talented children. Any questions about anything that I've said up to this point?
I'm gonna hold that option. No. Okay, there we go. So I wanna just say thank you so much for speaking to the families here, and we will offer many more of these seminars and times here at Kweller throughout the duration of your students being in this program. And to end on a high note, congratulations to your son, who went to Stuyvesant High School, who was accepted to Princeton University. So a round of applause, Alina. Yay! We're very happy, and I'm ready to bring out the tutors right now, so one at a time, okay?
And the final note is also, if you go to my website, nycschoolsecrets.com, there's a lot more detail and all of this information, and you can reach out to me if you have specific questions about your specific family situation.
Okay.
I'm a state hunter, and then I helped my younger brother, who is 3 years younger than me, to sit for Stuyvesant High School, and he did, and he's a graduate of Stuyvesant High School. Overall, the test is changing. And this is the first year that the changes are going to be implemented. They've been seeking to change the test for the last 20 years. A lot of the reasons is because the previous test, the way it was divided, is there were 2 sections. One is the verbal section and one is the math. And the verbal section was further split up into 3 other sections. One is scrambled paragraphs, which is a type of question that no student has seen before in any of their previous academic careers, from kindergarten to 8th grade. Another is logical reasoning, which only shows up on this exam and the LSAT exam, which is a test that future lawyers have to sit for before going to law school. And the other is reading comprehension, which is pretty standard and used throughout all test taking, especially standardized test taking. The math section is a combination of different topics, some that they have gone over in depth in school and others that they haven't. And that has stayed the same. The thing that they're changing about the exam is that they're trying to make this test a lot more like a transition between the Common Core curriculum that students are used to at school and the future PSAT and SAT tests that they'll have to eventually take before they go to college, when they apply for college. So the test has gotten rid of the scrambled paragraph section, since there were no other tests that had included them, and because they've never been taught in school. So they've tried to make it a bit fairer for those who would not or did not know about seeking out private tutoring for this. The logical reasoning section is also gone. What they've done is replaced it with more reading comprehension and grammar questions. Now, does that properly reflect what the students learn in school? Probably not, because a lot of grammar isn't properly taught in a lot of these schools. So for that, students have to seek outside education, and that's what Kweller is here for. And then they've also increased the number of questions. So the previous exam had 95 questions with a scrambled paragraph were worth 2 points each, so it added up to 100 points out of a raw score. And I'll get into the scoring a little bit later. Now they have 114 questions, so they've added more questions, but really what they've done is that 20 of those questions, and no test taker will be able to tell which 20 they are, experimental. So what that means is that they'll be on the exam, but they won't be scored. And you will never know as a test taker which 20 are experimental. The reason behind this is basically, they used to do this on the old SAT as an experimental section. It's so they can test out, field test their questions that they could possibly put for the year later or a few years in advance. So they will take that data from those 20 questions, and because the students don't know which are experimental and which aren't, they'll get an accurate sense of whether students know the material or don't. And if they find that a lot of students don't know the material, that means that material is not worthy of being on this test. It's not a proper indicator of whether or not the students learned about this material or not, and they won't include it on a future test. So those 20 questions will not impact your score, negatively or positively whatsoever. But since you don't know which 20 they are, you have to do your best on them as well, on the off chance that one of them is counted, right? Because you're not sure which one it is. So really, out of 114 questions, 94 of them are going to be counted. The other big change is the test used to be 2.5 hours long, and now it's going to be a full 3 hours. And that is more in line with the timing that they're used to both on the Common Core statewide exams and what they're going to see in the future with the SAT. Along with that, the test is not entirely multiple choice anymore as it used to be. Along with the math questions, they're going to add 5 grid-in questions. So what a grid-in question looks like is essentially it's a free response without showing your work. You're going to be given a word, usually it's a word problem, and you're going to be asked to find the value of something. And then you will have 4 grid markers, which will tell you to then approximate what that value is. So if you were to get 2/3, and in this packet, if you move on later on, in the sample questions, it shows you exactly what a grid would look like. So if you move on to page 14 or page 15, you can see an example of what a grid looks like. So there are 4 slots, and if your answer is 3, you just bubble in 3 and write 3 in. So there's going to be 5 of those questions. Now, some have speculated that those 5 for sure will definitely be counted. They won't be the experimental. But again, you can never be so sure. So you have to do them as if they are the real thing. Take the whole test, take the full 114 as if every single question counts. The other thing that I'm going to say is these changes were released in January. From my experience tutoring, not only at Kweller but in other places, I've gained a lot of insight and have a lot of, I guess, a nice network of friends who are interested in the same business, including one who works for the Board of Education, particularly in this department. So they are going to release 2 sample exams in June. That is their goal. So until then, no one will get a full sense of what their test is going to look like. What we've done is we've taken examples, right? The math will not change in the sense of the way the questions are asked. It will be the same topics. So what we've done is that we've used that material from before. Same thing with the reading comprehension. So we're using that material as well. What we have to play around with is the grid-ins and the grammar that's on this new test. What we assume the grammar is going to look like is going to be easier than the SAT, since they're trying to connect those two. And it's going to be similar to what's taught at elementary and middle school level grammar. So we're combining the way the SAT questions look. What we're working on at Kweller right now is essentially dissecting sample tests, right, once we get them in June, and also creating our own material. Because since this is the first year of the test, any material that any company has out is going to be experimental. They won't know fully how the test is going to be. So what we're trying to do is get a head start on that. We're taking topics that we know have shown up on the SAT over and over and over again, and we're trying to basically morph those questions into grid-ins for the math, and taking grammar questions that we know have been asked at the middle school level in certain schools and certain other standardized tests, and turning them into the SAT formatting, since we know that this is what they're trying to do with this test. Another big change that does make a big difference is the multiple choice used to be out of 5 possible choices, and now it's out of 4. And there is, as there used to be, no penalty for guessing. That means that if you are running out of time, it is in your best interest to put down an answer and move on. If you have 2 minutes left and 10 questions left, rather than trying to tackle one of the questions, you should be answering the questions, bubbling them in as soon as possible. In terms of grading, because I skipped over that, the way that the old test used to work is that the two sections, the verbal and the math, even though they were out of 50 points each on a raw score, they were scaled to out of 400. Now the scale isn't nice, it isn't proportional. It's not that if you get a 40 out of 50, we're just going to multiply everything by 8 and give you a 320 out of 400. That's not how it works. It happens on a curve. And that curve is set every single year, and it doesn't work in your favor. It's very steep in the beginning, and it kind of narrows out in the end. For those of you who remember any bit of chemistry, it's kind of like a pH curve. It's logarithmic in a sense at certain parts of it. So what happens is, if you get one question wrong on either the math or the verbal, out of a possible 400 points, you get dropped to around a 350. We have this exact same chart online at Kweller Prep on the website, so you can look that up. But essentially what happens is, in the beginning, if you get one question wrong, it actually takes off a bigger width, like the amount of points you have taken off. So if you do some calculations and messing around with the numbers, a person who got, say, 50 out of 50 on one section, 400 points, and a 25 out of 50, which I think is about a 210, would total to get a raw score or an overall scale score of 610. The cutoff usually for Stuyvesant has been around a 560. So that person would get into Stuyvesant even though they're very, very one-sided in their academics. They're much better ELA students, say, than math. And they have, you would look at it as they've gotten 75% on the exam. Now another student who has gotten both an even amount, a 36 and a 36 on both, which would also add up to, that would add up to 72. Not that off in terms of percentages, would not have any shot at getting into Stuyvesant, because that would be like a 505 the way it's scaled. So the way the old test was scored, it gave a lot more favor to those who were one-sided in terms of their academics. So some parents have asked me in the past, so is it in my best interest if my daughter or son is really good at math to just stick with that and make sure they get a perfect score on that? When I first began tutoring, when I was much younger, I would tell them, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to do that. But what I realized is that those same students would come back to me in about 2 years and say, I'm really struggling with what used to be weak. So much so that I might possibly fail that class. So even though you might try to beat the test in terms of being one-sided in your education, in the future, it will be very detrimental. Because if you get into a school like Stuyvesant, Bronx Center, Brooklyn Tech, you're gonna have to work a lot harder to bring down what used to be your weak aspect of your education in terms of that. So what we try to do at Kweller is we try to make sure that not only do they get the scores that would get them into these schools based off the scaling that we have, but also that they're both well-rounded. So our target score used to be a 42 out of 50 on each, which would be an overall 84-85%. Now the scaling now we won't know until June. There have been talk that scaling and that way of grading is not the best, and they're trying to change that. So that's something that we're gonna have to wait until June to get from the Board of Education. And I guess what I wanna leave you off, and those are kind of all the changes that you need to know for the exam. What I wanna leave you off is why this summer is so important. From tutoring for so long, what I've noticed is you can have any kind of student, but a student who doesn't put in the practice for this summer, they suffer the most. This test, at a certain point, once you learn all the material, it's all about repetition. The more practice tests you do, the better chance you have. When you're 7th grader preparing for this, and you're going to take it in the beginning of 8th grade, the thing that you need to worry about is test stamina, and not a lot of students have that. To be concentrated for 3 hours and take this test. I know a lot of you might think, well, my child does that for the statewide exam. The statewide exam and this is a completely different beast, right? It's a lot harder to take this exam because a lot of the materials will be stuff that they have not learned at school. So it's going to be stuff that they need to learn in the summer. The other reason why I think that this summer is so valuable is because the way I usually organize it for students is I tell them, by the end of August or around mid-August, you should have learned all the topics that you need to know for the test. After that point, there is no time to learn anything new. It's all about review. All the way until September, from the end of August until school begins, you should just review the topics and make sure you're comfortable with them. In September, and since the test is usually the 3rd week of October, it's all about practice tests. The more practice tests you take in September through October and review them, the better shot you will have at a school like Stuyvesant, Bronx Center, Brooklyn Tech. Thank you very much. Do you all have any questions for me? Yeah.
I have a quick question. So the booklet says that you take the exam in 8th or 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
How would you take it in 9th grade? Is 9th grade already high school?
So yeah, so there's one other option. For the specialized high schools, there's 2 points of entry. One is 8th grade, right? So you would take the test in the October of 8th grade and you would sit for a seat for 9th grade to be a freshman at Stuyvesant, Bronx Center, Brooklyn Tech, or any of the other specialized high schools. The other opportunity that they give you is a very limited number of seats for the entering 10th grade year. Now this is what happens. That test is a lot harder. It's a big jump. Because the test right now, right, that they're going to take in the October of 8th grade, it has material that has not been taught till the end of 8th grade, right? That's why people have to get a head start on it. When you take the test in 9th grade, they have material there that won't be taught until the end of 9th grade. So if you're a person who struggled with the 8th grade exam, sitting for the 9th grade exam, it's another big jump, because that's a year of high school learning that you now need to have under your belt. Not only is the test harder, there's also fewer seats, and also you need to have a higher cutoff score to get into the schools. So if it used to be a 566 or a 565 for Stuyvesant, it jumps up to about a 600. So that's a big scaling jump as well. So that's why we tell parents and students, prepare for the 8th grade exam and try to make that your one shot for the exam and for the school. Because if you take it in 9th grade, the chances are much slimmer because there's so many fewer seats for that reason. Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your time. Have a great evening.
We're so happy there's so many of you here, and as we will go through each school that is being represented, I'm really excited to share with you that some of these are former students, some of them are tutors, so a lot of them are passing the torch. I would like each of you to just state your name and where you are in terms of school, where you went. And if you could also say one thing that you like a lot about your school and one thing that you didn't like about your high school. So one positive, one negative. All right, so let's go up and down. And in about a minute or so, I'm thinking maybe we'll take the kids who are here and split them so they can speak comfortably with the tutors and the students who are here. And then let's just go down the ladder first. All right, go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Jen Marie Sparaccio. I'm a tutor here at Kweller Prep. I attended Staten Island Technical High School, and I am currently a junior at Hunter College. Oh, one thing I liked about my school, they have a wonderful physics and engineering program, as well as a language program at Staten Island Tech that a lot of people don't know about. So that was really excellent for getting into colleges because, especially being a woman in that kind of field, it's really great preparation. Something that is a bit of a downside is in Staten Island, so it is a long commute if you do not live in, let's say, Brooklyn or in Staten Island. And it is a small school, but for me, I thought that was great. I really liked it being a small school.
My name is Jen. I went to Stuyvesant High School. I graduated just this past June. I currently attend Hunter College. One thing I liked about Stuyvesant was that being in an environment where everyone around me was so motivated and kind of hardworking really pushed me and I think made me a better student. But the downside of that was it was incredibly stressful for 4 years.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I went to Beacon High School and I'm currently a freshman at Hunter College. And one thing that I really liked about Beacon was it really emphasized writing and history and just overall well-roundedness in education. I'm really, really good with writing papers now. They really push that sort of thing. One downside of it was definitely like the stress levels and test taking is.
My name is Anil Oza. I'm currently a junior at the High School of American Studies at Lincoln College. I would say my favorite thing about my school is that it's a very small school and it creates a very close-knit community, which I think is very helpful in terms of dealing with stress and that kind of stuff. But I will say the downside is it's pretty far for anyone that doesn't live in the Bronx. Like I live in Queens and it takes about an hour and a half to get there.
My name is Yafa. I graduated from Bard High School, Early College, Queens, and I'm currently finishing up my first year at NYC. I think the best thing about Bard was graduating with 60 college credits, and especially since half of those transferred into NYU, so I get to graduate early. But the one downside is that it's a really hard transition, and the workload's a lot.
Hi, my name is Teddy, and I too graduated from Bard High School Early College, and now I am finishing up my first year at Baruch College. One thing that I definitely liked about Bard was the wide variety of college classes you can choose to take in 11th and 12th grade and diversify your field of education. And one downside to Bard was, I would have to honestly agree with Yafa, was the transition from 8th to 9th grade, since I went from a normal public middle school into a more accelerated high school, so I wasn't ready for the workload and at the pace at which it was taught to me, but you get to adjust.
I'm Rosa, and I currently am a sophomore at the Brooklyn Latin School. The great thing about Brooklyn Latin is that it's small and it's nice to your community, and I love going there. And I get exempted from finals, so I'm really happy. And the downside would be that it's really stressful, especially if you are a transfer sophomore, which I was. Going from a public normal high school to a specialized high school was stressful.
Hi, I'm Luke. I'm currently a junior at Baccalaureate School for Global Education. So I think one of the positive aspects about this school is that it really pushes you in terms of your workload and everything, which although it's stressful, it definitely prepares you for college. But I think one of the downsides is that it's a very small school, and so a lot of the normal facilities that a lot of big high schools have, we don't have. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Camilla, and I also go to the Baccalaureate School for Global Education, and I'm a junior currently, but I think that my favorite part of the school is probably the IB courses that it offers and how they prepare you for college. And the downside is that we don't offer a physics class, which I would have liked to take in.
Hi, my name is Abbas, and and I attended Brooklyn Technical High School. I'd say one of my favorite parts was the major system that Brooklyn Tech offers that no other school in the city does. So basically at the end of our sophomore year, we were allowed to choose a major, which meant that in our junior and senior year, we'd have more classes catered towards that field. So I was in the law and society major, and I took classes such as criminal law, criminal procedure, civil law, legal ethics, and that's going to allow your kids to like kind of get a taste of one particular field and see if they like it or not. And both of those are very useful for your kids. A lot of kids went into a major thinking they would love it and they ended up hating it, but at least they knew that for the future, and then vice versa as well. Another big thing that I liked about the school was the size. So it is one of the biggest schools in America at 5,500 kids about. But honestly, the wide variety of people you met really shapes you into the person you are. You get to see people from different walks of life and really get a taste of other people's cultures and ideas as well. We had a lot of clubs in our school, a lot of communities. Your kid would definitely find themselves within the school. And yeah, I'd say those are some of the best parts of the school. So I had one teacher, for example, for my AP economics class, he was a Wall Street trader. For my criminal procedure teacher did death penalty work in Alabama, so they have a lot of like hands-on experience in the field. I think one of the AP chemistry teachers like invented the lithium-ion battery or something. I'm not too sure on like that, but like he did invent something like pretty big. So these people are really like experienced teachers. They know what they're talking about, and you're learning firsthand from them, and they do get to share their own experiences. So when kids are kind of getting an idea of what they want to do towards the end of high school, you have people to talk to who actually did these things that these jobs that kids are considering. And Brooklyn Tech also, a really big thing about Brooklyn Tech is they allowed me to have a lot of autonomy over my schedule. So in other schools where they have prerequisites for APs, Brooklyn Tech doesn't really. So I was able to skip Regents Physics, which is just high school level physics, and take AP Physics immediately. And what that allowed me and my friends and other kids to do is really challenge ourselves when it came to our scheduling. So in my junior year, I was able to take 5 APs. My senior year, I took 4, and my sophomore year, I took 1. So I graduated with 10 APs, and I took 1 on my own without having a class. So 11 APs in all, which isn't something that most students can say. And that was the case for a lot of students as well. So if your kid is somebody who wants to challenge themselves up to the next level, Brooklyn Tech really does give them the ability to do that. And also through the major system, kids get again more autonomy over like what kind of classes they're taking in order to cater it more towards their interests. One thing I would say that is kind of a negative is like there is a very competitive atmosphere. But my brother, who is graduating Sty right now, I noticed that in Stuyvesant there is way more of a competitive atmosphere. So for the newspaper, for example, as the club, I was able to join and become an editor within 2 years. But in Stuyvesant, you can't even become a writer without like being accepted. So that is one thing that I wish Brooklyn Tech had a little bit more, because it kind of like decreases the value of the things you're doing to an extent. However, we did have like one of the best Model UN clubs in the entire city. I was a Model UN member myself, and I remember my last year we had won like 100 and something awards. Our debate team is super elite as well. We compete in like Ivy League conferences and all that. So there are a lot of opportunities for your kids to like really get a grasp of what they want to do in a competitive atmosphere, and also more catered towards their interests.
I'm Rosa, and I am a transfer sophomore. So I went to a normal high school for 9th grade, and then I went to a specialized high school. So I took the 9th grade exam, which was
done in her second try.
it was harder. It was a lot more harder than the 8th grade test, and I did have to practice a lot. I gave up my entire summer to practice for the test, and the math was harder. So I'd like to say that take it 8th grade, like try to make it in, because the 9th grade is way more competitive, and you have to score about like 40 to 50 points higher in order to get into the schools, and the seats are very limited, and it differs in terms of every year, it changes. So you don't know for sure how many seats are available. So you have to give it your best shot for 9th grade. Also, I love my school a lot.
Can you just repeat the name of your school?
The Brooklyn Latin.
And what kind of diploma are you getting?
IB diploma. It's the only specialized high school that has IBs, International Baccalaureate. It's the only school that offers that, and we don't have APs. But International Baccalaureate these credits can be transferred all over the world, so it's not only limited to the United States, but you can use those credits outside, like Australia or like Oxford, anywhere, like wherever you want to go, like for higher studies or whatever, like you can use those credits. I really like my school because it was a great transition from like an ordinary school to a specialized high school. I really like it. My favorite part would be, of course, getting exempted from my finals, because who likes finals? But if you get above a 90 in your courses, you are automatically exempted from your finals. So that's 3 weeks of anything you want to do. Like for example, I am trying to take the SAT. So those 3 weeks, I won't be taking any of my exams. I'll be chilling. I'll be taking practice tests that Francis has to give me for SAT, and I'll hopefully get a degree. And so let's just say that finals are a big part of our grade, and we consider it as it's very important. It's just like Regents for us. Like finals are very important, and they're graded harshly, and they are like 30% of our grades for every classes. Finals are very important. So getting exempted from that is like 30% of your grade. You're just having an advantage, and it's just great to be exempted from that school, from that final exam. Whatever. Also, a lot of people don't like Brooklyn Latin because it's the lowest cutoff, and also it's because it's small. That is not the case that I've learned. A lot of people say that, oh, it's just, they kind of don't like it because it's small, and it's not as great. Like they say it's not as great, but you wouldn't know that unless you.
Students are in it?
Oh, right. It's small. It's very small. We don't even have 1,000 kids. It's about 800 kids total, which is a good thing because teachers now pay attention to individual students more. You can't see that in Brooklyn Tech because you have like 5,000 kids, 5 to 6,000 kids, but we have about like 800 kids. So each teacher, they can individually look at one student and give them more attention. So let's just say that if you're not doing well, they will call your parents and be like, oh, I don't know why your child is struggling. Do you want to talk to me about it, figure it out? Which is a good thing. So that would be a good sign. The negative sign would be that, the negative side would be that we have a small space. I would really like my school to improve to a bigger place. So we don't have the things that other big schools have. Like we don't have our entire playground. We have half of the gym, which is not as great because it limits our playing space. So that would be a downside, but overall, Brooklyn Latin is really good as a school, and it definitely deserves to be more appreciated.
Where is the school?
It's in Brooklyn. It's in Williamsburg. Yeah. Any more questions for me?
Okay, so my name is Anil. I'm a current student at the High School of American Studies at Lincoln College. The High School of American Studies gets overlooked a lot because a lot of parents are saying that their kid wants to go into math or science, but our school, I think, is really well-rounded, and I think that gets overlooked. But I think the one thing that my school makes our school very different from a lot of other schools is our partnership with Lehman College. It enables students in their junior and senior year to take classes in Lehman College and earn college credit that way. And the difference between that and something like an AP course would be that it's taught by a professor and taught in the company of regular college students, and so it's much easier to get those credits transferred as compared to AP classes and things like that. And you can also meet people that are involved in the field. Like, I want to be a doctor, and so I took a psychology class, but I'm also applying for more advanced psychology classes. And that's something that a student at any other school just simply cannot say. We also are a very small school. We have about 360 students total. And I think that offers a lot of advantages in terms of having a very close community. Everyone's on a friendly basis, all the teachers know all the students, and the advantage that I've already talked over. But I think that the disadvantage of not being able to have a lot of facilities is met because of our partnership with Beacon College. Like, we're able to use their gym facilities, we're able to use the lunchroom, and most importantly, the library. So a fully functional college level research library. And so it has any book you would ever need for a high school level work. Another thing that makes my school different is that we offer 3 years of AP US History. Typically it's taught in 1 year, it's pretty rushed, but over the course of 3 years, teachers get pretty in-depth about everything to do with American history. And I think it's also very interesting because if you're interested in something like science or math, going into US history that deep, you kind of have to go in for things like science and how that affected history. We also have a lot of AP classes, just like a lot of the other specialized schools. We offer in total like 11 AP classes, and pretty much any student can take all of them. Does anyone have any questions?
Maybe at the end, we'll just have questions per person, but let's keep moving down the ladder.
Okay.
And then he's gonna be the last one.
Okay, so I'm Jen. I graduated from Stuyvesant last June, and I'm currently a freshman at Hunter College. I loved Stuyvesant. I think it shaped me completely into the person I am today. I think a lot of the time Stuyvesant is so known for its academic rigor, and a lot of extracurricular activities get overlooked. But I would say extracurricular activities between me and my friends and most people shaped their life as much as the academics. Also in the actual academic sense, I think Stuyvesant, there's a lot of misperception that it's like a science and math oriented school, but our English department is just as strong as the maths and the sciences, so is our history department. It's pretty large. The school has around 3,200 people. But I not once felt like I was in a swarm and like that my teachers did not care about me. The classes tend to be capped at around 30 people. But teachers do really tend to make an effort to kind of get to know their students. Also the counseling. So you get like a general guidance counselor, and then when it comes time to apply to colleges, you get a college counselor. And there's 4 college counselors for the entire school, and they know their job. They meet with you individually, they sort through your interests, your grades, what you've done, and they work with you one-on-one to kind of create a very reasonable, accomplishable list of schools to apply to. And so a lot of my friends didn't have the same experience, and so I felt very lucky to be at Stuyvesant and be kind of guided through the whole college process. Additionally, there was just an insane amount of classes. The first 2 years are pretty straightforward. You're kind of expected to take certain classes, certain sciences, English. But when you get to around junior, senior year, we offer, I want to say like in the 50s amount of APs. And I took a lot of APs during my time at Stuyvesant, and the college I'm at now actually accepted all of them, and I'm able to graduate a year early because of that, which I think is wonderful. So yeah, as I was saying, the extracurriculars were incredible. I was on 2 sports teams. Stuyvesant is relatively well funded, so we had, I did 2 of the sports that are like the rarest I think in the city. I was on gymnastics and diving, and so we have a full gymnastics gym and a diving board in our pool. Additionally, it's known for being competitive, and I definitely felt that throughout my time, but I wouldn't say it's like a poisonous, toxic kind of atmosphere. At the end, I think a lot of the time that's the questions I get about being at Stuyvesant, and you'll definitely get people who kind of are toxic, but overall, I would say I always felt like I had someone to turn to. I felt like if I asked my classmate a question about the class, they were happy to help me and happy to answer me, and I was always happy to help my classmates. And so you're kind of struggling for 4 years, but you know you're struggling together, and you really kind of you know you're in it together. So I can't say that it was like a toxic competitiveness. If anything, I think the competitiveness pushes you and makes you a better person. And the competitiveness is also reflected not only in the academics, but I think the boss kind of mentioned it in the extracurriculars. It is basically most organizations, from sports teams to like the newspaper to honor societies, all have some hierarchy, very democratic hierarchy, but nevertheless it's all very competitive, and being in a club or an organization really means a lot to people and kind of becomes like a very inherent part of them. I'll answer any questions later.
Hi everyone, so my name is Jen Marie again. I went to Staten Island Technical High School. Not a lot of people talk about Staten Island Tech, not a lot of people know about Staten Island Tech, and it's a great school for people that either live in Staten Island or on the south side of Brooklyn, as another option instead of having to travel all the way to the city. I know that people would come from the city to come to Staten Island Tech specifically because of its strengths in certain things which I will discuss. So its engineering curriculum is really great. Students are required to take AutoCAD, which is like a computer design program. They have to take robotics and like intro to engineering and like physics and things. The physics professors and teachers there are fantastic. They really ready you for college level kind of physics, and I know that it's a huge field right now to go into computer engineering, computer science. So it's really great for people that want to get into that. The other thing is the language program there. So it is the only high school that offers Russian as the main language. So you have to take Russian when you're at Staten Island Tech. A lot of people get kind of psyched out by this. They're a little nervous going into it because it's not the typical Romance languages, but I actually think that it's a massive strength. When I went on college interviews and when I would put down on my resume and things, I could say that I had taken Russian for that long, and we also offer an AP in Russian. So the program is very popular for that reason, because a lot of colleges find this very interesting, that you had to take this for that long, and you have the proficiency level of someone that had taken a Romance language for 4 years. So that's I would say that's actually a plus for the school. Also, being a smaller school, there's about 1,000 students total. Kind of ranges here and there. I know the Tech accepted like 1,100 or something this year. I like that it was a smaller school because all the teachers know you, you know all the teachers. You can go to any teacher in the school and they will help you with whatever you need. The English teachers particularly, I think, were one of the biggest helps for me in high school, because they will sit down with you and they will help you write those college essays. And those college essays for the Common App are probably going to be one of the biggest things of your junior and senior year. You have to spend so much time on those applications and on those supplemental forms. There are so many for each school. You'll kind of feel a little overwhelmed with all the essays that you have to write, all the topics that you have to cover, and you really want to have a great writing background to be able to excel at these college supplements. So the teachers at Staten Island Tech are really great about sitting down with you, going over essay tips, going over the actual essay with you, and yeah, so that was really great. Finally, Staten Island Tech has a lot of clubs and a lot of sports teams, so extracurriculars, really great there. We had a wonderful speech team. We had a wonderful robotics team, particularly. So the robotics team would constantly go to nationals every year. The Science Olympiad was huge in the school. And we also had Sing, which was a great theater performance competition that would, it was kind of like a pep rally for the school every year. Everyone would get involved. It's student run, student led. It was a really great way to bond with other students. So yeah, that's about Staten Island Tech.
Hello, my name is Mohammed. I'm a current junior at the Bronx High School of Science. We are 3,000 strong, and we are mostly known for our science and math department, which is pretty exemplary. We've had multiple Nobel laureates, and the courses you can take at Bronx Science are almost similar to like the ones you can take at Stuyvesant, at Brooklyn Tech, and some of the other specialized schools. One thing I'd like to say is that we don't put a cap on the number of APs or the number of classes you can take, or the way you can choose your schedule. Like this year, I'm taking almost 3 science classes: AP Biology, AP not chemistry, physics, and AP Psychology as well. And on top of that, some of my friends are taking like 2 history classes this year. And like next year, like some of my senior friends are taking 3 math classes, AP Statistics, AP Calculus BC, and AP not AP, linear regression, not linear regression. Linear algebra, thank you. Sorry, I've been at a conference this day, so at Stuyvesant actually, for Model UN, which our team is up and coming, and I'd like to say that in addition to like that team, like we also have a debate team that is also exemplary across like the whole country, and even our robotics program. I actually have a story to tell. Like I remember one of my friends telling me that they needed a part for like robotics, and it was pretty expensive. They didn't know it at the time, but like they asked like one of the budget manager for it, and literally the next day they had it. The budget for the robotics for debate for Model UN, these other programs is pretty much endless. Not literally, but pretty much endless. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know her name, Janet, from Stuyvesant, our English department is also really good. I personally take AP English right now, and one of the things that I really didn't see myself getting into was English and Model UN, and becoming like maybe a lawyer in the future. But this year I have a 96 in English, which I never had before. And one of the other things I want to talk about is like, when I was a freshman, my transition from middle school to high school wasn't really that good. I started off with like an 86 average, 87 average, around there. But we have like freshman counseling every Friday, and we still have that. We have that, and they're trying to even expand that to sophomores now, to make sure that everyone is on track to graduate, on track to have better average by junior year, by senior year, so they can get into the colleges that they want. And I think that's one of the key things that discerns Bronx Science from some other colleges, some of the other high schools. Sorry, brain dead right now.
Did you tell him he just came from a different?
Yeah, I left my house around like 7 this morning. I went to a Model UN conference at Stuyvesant. I was there the whole day, and like right now I just got up, came here as soon as I could.
And that's
Question for everyone. The young lady mentioned that there was exemptions for the finals in her school. Is there something similar in the other schools?
I think that's very unique to her own school. I'm sure none of our schools do that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my school. We always have finals. So.
But one thing I could say about what she mentioned is that she spoke about like how the finals are comparative to the regions, which are pretty important.
Right.
And having the stress of a final away is like comparable to regions. Being in Brooklyn Tech, I never once felt the need to study for regions, which are the state tests, just because the level of our classes was already so elite and above like high school standards that those were just like on like less than regular class tests for us. So I went into the U.S. history region, and it was just a test that I took, got a 99 on, and I thought nothing of it. Because I mean, to put into perspective, your kids are going to be taking a lot of tests. So just personally, on top of my 11 AP tests, I had to take 3 SAT 2 tests, which are subject tests. I had to take the SAT. So although we don't get exempt from finals, we are prepared for the finals because they're on our departmental levels, and we're also ready for the regions, which are important in terms of like getting a better grade in the class and also passing your state requirements.
Two questions. What is the UN model, and how many AP classes can you take next year?
Okay, so Model UN is it's a debate club, and basically what a conference consists of is you represent a nation in a committee, and the committee has a general issue. So for example, if you're in the UN Human Council, right, you could be discussing the issues of women's rights, and every single delegation, which are just one student or a pair of students, has to represent their own country in terms of like solving that issue. And I did Model UN all 4 years of my high school, and it was honestly one of the best experiences ever. I have friends that I met who live in Italy and France and Spain that I still keep in touch with today. Like if I were to ever go to Italy to study abroad, for example, I'll have a friend in Milan or Rome that I can just hit up and ask them to show me around and whatnot. So like the Model UN is really good for like global networking and also kind of getting an idea of the global political scheme.
Yeah, I'd like to second that real quick. Just today in my conference we talked about Russia's annexation of Crimea and like how that affected global relations with Russia and like some other things on that topic. But like I just feel like taking like Model UN has just expanded my knowledge of the whole world and like what each country feels, what people in those countries see, how they see the whole world and like other countries in like surrounding them.
So it's not limited to your school. What you're saying is
No.
it's a bunch of
It's just a
not
China
only
has a
school,
chapter.
but you're telling me that
Yeah.
It's like a club of some
involved in
sorts.
there?
Yeah, so it's a thing that's like a prominent club in most schools. Like I'd say most schools would have a Model UN club
Yeah.
that your kid could partake in. Yeah, it's an international thing. Like as I said, probably less than like 1/3 of the kids in most of the conferences I went to were from America.
But you understand, it's also a social component. If you're already sitting for the exams, I am not going to tell you go to every single high school fair. It's very overwhelming to go to the fairs. But truthfully, watch the Kweller videos. Our videos are really good of Stuyvesant. And we have, I wouldn't to go to fairs or no. I'm not telling you that. I'm saying time is precious. Take all the exams. And at Kweller, because it's college students are here, because of the nature of the way the program is run, the students. Your children get along nicely with the staff here, and the rapport is very strong. So that's something to keep in mind too. We will have 4 classrooms. This is one of them. So your kids are here all summer potentially. This is one of 4, and in Queens we have 12. I have a lot more space there. Keep that in mind. And for those of you who will be doing the Kweller program, remember, this is just remind your kids, this is not forever. 4 hours, you're doing the test prep, go home, take a break, relax, study again. You can reward your kids after the testing is over. It will feel so good. By the way, by doing all of this test prep, 8th grade will be so easy. You will just be, really, it's just the kids say, wow, I know all the material. I'm teaching the class, one of the kids said the other night. So I'm very blessed to say that. And I will say that I needed not just the academic, but I needed the social. I actually didn't know any lawyers growing up, and I didn't know many professionals growing up, and it's been a very different world that I am able to provide my own beautiful children with than the world that I had. But my parents did what they could, and they pushed education. What this program will give you is the guidance. Myself, when I went through the public school system, I felt that I was told to relax, you'll figure it out. That's not at all what I learned when I got into NYU, and furthermore, when I got into law school, I couldn't believe how many things I didn't know, and that's really what made me open this program. So, it is what it is. Look, it's a small group setting, we have a nice program, and we're running it, and hopefully I think these workshops are very helpful, and we're getting really good feedback on it. As we continue the programs, we're going to keep hosting this in different arrays. I'm looking forward to doing a college one. That's really what Kweller is about. We want to help channel these kids into the colleges and the scholarships and pushing that aside. And these next few months are just transformative, so keep that in mind. If you already have plans and you're late for the summer, we do have a program starting August 21. It's on the back of this. We're not going to take new students after August 21st because, I've learned my lesson not to do that. Anxiety is very high, tension's very high, and taking someone new after that is very stressful. So please make your decision if you're not sure yet. If you will participate in this program, please be sure to do it before, it's not something we're able to do is to take new kids in for September for the October test. Yeah, correct. And we do encourage, the beauty of having a 6th grader, if you have, is you're just easing into the test prep, and it's not, the pressure's not there. So that I'm sharing. I do want to take a minute to show off. Yapo is a student at the SAT program at Kweller. Well, friend of a student at the SAT program at Kweller. Student at the SAT student, okay. Highly complimented tutor for her English and writing skills. So I made sure to pay attention to the classes that you took, because lots of compliments from Rebecca. And I'm happy to have a separate workshop on the college admissions process, which so many students who went to Kweller for Hunter and did place into baccalaureate, and lo and behold, now they have this opportunity to get into middle school. If you are sitting for the SHSAT in October, I can write you a gentle timeline if you want to just jot down some quick ideas scheduling. If you're sitting for the SHSAT, that test will take place around October 22. On Columbus Day, whoever is participating at Kweller in our programs is invited to come. We don't charge for that day, just come to Kweller, okay? You will take a full diagnostic test, and you will see how you are performing about 10 days before the real test. Around October 25th to November 1. Make sure you register for the BARD exam. BARD will give you a lot of different options. You can take the BARD test in December, you can take the BARD test in September. Take it within 10 days of taking the SHSAT because your mind is fresh. Take it. Then you should also sit, it's called the IC exam, ISEE. That's the private school test. Just take the test. Your kids are already taking 3 tests and complaining, what's 4? What's 5? Like, what's the big deal? They're already sitting for all these exams, right? So sit for the IC exam. You'll be amazed at how many programs. I'm just going to give you off the top of my head some that I'm familiar with. One is called A Better Chance. You can look it up online. The other one is called TEAK. The other one is a Prep for Prep. There are so many different programs, and the schools themselves will scout you out, the Alumni Association. And I want to make something very, very black and white clear. Listen to me. If your child performs in the 99th percentile on the Catholic school entrance exam, on the BARD test, on the IC, they will do everything in their power to take your kid. Keep your opportunities open. Make sure. The other test you'll sit for is the TACS, TACHS, and you'll sit for multiple exams. This is another one for the Catholic schools. So around October 22 is the SHSCT. Around October 29, grab that spot for the BARD exam. In addition to that, sit for the TACS, TACHS test. And if you're already sitting for the TACS, you might as well sit for this. There's a scholarship exam. Always register for the scholarship test. Would you like to share something about that? Okay, share the scholarship test. Feel free, okay? Make sure that you need to, it's a separate test with more math and more English, okay, and some current events. In addition to that, if you're already sitting for the TACS, you might as well sit for the HSPT. HSPT is basically a very long TACS exam, which is basically an SHSAT, which is basically an IC. That's the beauty of these exams. All of these tests are math and English based. So keeping in mind that the formatting, the content is essentially the same, the vocabulary here and there. And encourage your kids to take everything. They're gonna say no to you anyway. I mean, I just don't understand what the big deal is. You know, it's like, am I putting up a fight? Like, so just keep everything wide open. That's true. Massachusetts has the MCAS and California has exit exams. You should keep in mind that if you go to a SUNY or CUNY school, they do have really beautiful scholarship opportunities for, you know, for New York State Regions recipients. And if you score above a 90, it's supposed to be in the math and science regions as well. So I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone and to say that we appreciate you being here, and it's a Saturday night and you're taking time to inform the parents, and it's just such a great thing. And thank you.